Good afternoon. Well, I don't know how to tell you this afternoon, but it's World Toilet Day. When you stop to take a moment on the toilet or throne in your house, you may want to think about how important it is to you, what life would be like without it. Well, it's one of the stains in our society that there's still over 3,200 schools in our country where children have to use pit latrines. You know, the horrendous things that happen involving these toilets. Children fall into them. They literally die after falling into them. Some of them are really in a very bad condition. Dr. Tshepiso Matenjie is an educational psychologist. Dr. Matenjie, good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. I mean, we have a situation where very young children have to use these toilets. They must know that these toilets are dangerous, that they have a particular smell. Is there trauma associated with this? I mean, there must be something.
Good afternoon, Stephen. So nice to speak to you, and thank you for coming here. Absolutely. There is trauma associated with a lack of hygiene, the fact that toilets are unsafe, whether they are at a distance or there aren't enough of them or they are dilapidated, and what you've already mentioned now about the pit latrines. Think about the fact that if there's very few ablutions in the area, a child will have to constrict their bowel movements, and there may be accidents. It might even interfere with their ability to be able to exercise their normal bowel movements. And those types of things, we know in psychology we have children who struggle with aneurysms and crisis, where the child is not able to be properly using their bodily functions, even though they've been toilet trained before. But we also know that where toilets are unsafe, children can be exposed to bullying, to all sorts of traumas that have to do with simply not being able to have a sense of safety, a sense of dignity, and just being able to be normal and focus and concentrate on learning. So we are raising this issue about pit latrines, not necessarily to point the finger at what government can do. We want people out there to understand the importance of toilets. It's not just in terms of if you don't have correct sanitation, it will just contaminate water. But think about how if you are a learner in a very vulnerable age, your self-esteem, the fact that you need to concentrate, you need to be able to access a toilet when you need to. And when you are going there, you're not going to be accosted by somebody on the way or be bullied. All of those things impact your ability to perform well optimally in school, and also just in terms of your own development as a child.
I mean, I sort of have this image in my head of a young child sitting at school, you know, sort of needing to go to the toilet and kind of clenching because it's the worst thing in the world to go to that toilet.
It is. In fact, if you're thinking about it, the teacher will be there teaching, and the child will not be able to engage meaningfully with the learning. Think about what you are able to concentrate and actually retain in terms of that learning environment. But more importantly, it's an issue of you are at the school to be there to achieve certain things, certain objectives. And there is something that people can do right now. Through this domestic campaign, you can stop pointing the finger at government and say things need to change. You can actually take ownership to do something about it. And if you understand the fact that it's not just about toilet use, it's about the mental health, the learning health, the psychological impacts, and just the overall infrastructure development. When you actually get involved in this type of a campaign, you are actually correcting it and doing something to change it. Now, we've been struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic. We've talked about the importance of water, the importance of sanitation, the importance of hygiene. Through the Domestos campaign, we're actually highlighting this and making people aware that you can actually make an impact in the lives of those vulnerable children.
Within all of this, I mean, at the same time, what happens to you as a child can stick with you for life. I mean, this is the kind of thing that can really mark you for life. And yes, you know, people get older, they get over childhood trauma. Not always. It stays with you. I mean, and this is something you have to do every day. And every day you could be reminded about what it was like.
Look, the taunting that might happen when a child has got accidents, and for most of our parents out there, they're not necessarily aware of how, for example, to treat a child who is bedwetting. We tend to think that just by ridiculing them and putting pressure on them, and sometimes even hitting them, that will necessarily make a difference. But also in terms of peers in our communities, we don't raise awareness about the fact that the sanitation crisis is impacting these kids in terms of just being able to have a normal developing stages that they're going through. So if you're an adult, there's a lot of adults who will tell you that if they're traveling and they get to sanitary stations where it's not hygiene, they will actually hold their urine and they will not use toilets. So it becomes a habit that starts impacting. We've got adults who, when they're stressed, they struggle, for example, with irritable bowel syndromes. You actually end up having these types of problems impacting you later in your life. So we can do something when the kids are still young, so that they're able to access hygienically clean, safe environments and toilets that are actually able to allow them to just live their normal lives in a dignified manner.
Is there another way that it might have an impact, which is that children who have to use pit latrines at school may well also have to use pit latrines at home, or no latrine at home, and they will know, I mean, people will watch TV, they will know that other people in the cities, people who are richer than them, actually have flushing toilets. They will know what that is, and they will know that in a way they're being treated differently. I mean, this is a fundamental thing, going to the toilet. They will know that they're being treated differently to other people, that they're seen, that society maybe doesn't value them as much. I mean, I can imagine how that could have an impact on someone's confidence. You're a young person, maybe you go to the city, you sort of realize where you come from and other people come from.
Absolutely. If you think about it, if somebody speaking English and you are aware that you're struggling to communicate because you do not know or understand English, you're going to be self-conscious. You're not even going to believe in your ability to be able to perform at the level of other people do. And right then and there, your own self-esteem is damaged. But then you begin to do not even live to the best version of yourself and live to your true potential. Now, children are not stupid. They can see that where I come from, I've got inferior resources, that I'm disadvantaged. I'm not as equal as other people. Now, we talk about crime in our country as if it's just about getting employment and getting an education. It's also about simple infrastructure development, where if we are not doing something through these types of campaigns, we're actually not making a difference. And think about when somebody actually comes into your house and realizes you've got DSTV, you've got a car, you've got this, you've got all resources that they never enjoyed. They're actually going to start thinking, I need to take what's due to me, because unless it is given, unless I take it, nobody's going to give it to me. And you tend to want to equalize those powers. So if you think about the long-term impacts in terms of what socioeconomic differences does on a person's psyche and on our society, you can actually break that cycle from when the children are still vulnerable. So absolutely, I agree with you that the long-term impact, it actually doesn't just end up with just about toilets and hygiene. It ends up actually impacting the socioeconomic status and our future as a country.
I always find it amazing, Doctor, that this is still such a big problem after such a long time. And I suppose when I say after such a long time, I really mean since the end of apartheid. But I mean, we've had promise after promise after promise. People have gone to court with the education department. The education department's explained lack of resources, etc. What I'm trying to get to is that if you're a child in this position, I would think after watching all of these promises, if you're a parent and you've watched your child go to the same school you did and it still has a pit latrine, you'll think society just doesn't value you. And in fact, society has shown that it doesn't.
I think we are changing that. This conversation is about the fact that we can't just wait for somebody to come and rescue us. Even you in the rural areas, there's a responsibility that you have. If you are responsible and an intentional shopper and you are very conscientious about the products you buy and what those do in terms of alleviating poverty and addressing some of these things, you can actually break that cycle. I think this campaign is about you taking ownership, thinking, what can I do? So when I go shopping, when I choose the products that I choose, whether I'm going to clean my kitchen or clean my floors, let me buy domestics, because I understand that every little thing that I buy there, every unit that I purchase is going to actually make a difference in my own community, but also within the other people's lives, and more importantly, into the vulnerable child's lives. We are actually making an opportunity for that child to break the cycle of poverty. If you're going to wait on government, you're actually also absolving your own responsibility. You are actually sleeping on the job. So there is something you can do. You don't need necessarily to come from the suburbs to be able to do your part. Be an intentional shopper. Be conscientious about what you buy. Look at products that actually break the cycle and actually gives people, young children, an opportunity. And domestic is one of those. And this day is about, this World Toilet Day is about making that impact and you taking ownership.
Dr. Tshepiso Matenjie, thanks very much indeed, educational psychologist. I really do appreciate the time with us here on Newsfeed.